Okay, let's dive right into this. If you're listening to this explainer right now, chances are you're acutely aware of what time it is. You might be squeezing this in on a quick 15-minute break or commuting on a strict schedule, feeling that deeply familiar, very modern anxiety about productivity and the relentless ticking of the clock. But as a historian looking at the vast, sweeping stretch of human existence, I have to tell you something pretty incredible. This anxiety, this feeling of being completely ruled by hours and minutes, it's a profoundly recent human invention. Today, we're going to reconstruct an entire human world that existed long before the mechanical clock. We're going to look at how everyday people actually experience the passage of the day, and how, ultimately, our ancestors were captured by the very timekeeping machines they invented.
So, I want to prompt you to just forget the strict schedules of modern life for a moment. Step back with me into a lost reality, one governed entirely by the rhythm of nature. Just imagine a world where your daily routine wasn't dictated by an abstract grid of numbers on a screen, but by the physical environment right around you. The sounds of livestock waking up, the temperature of the morning air, the smell of the harvest, these were the true arbiters of time.
Act 1. The rhythm of nature, or what anthropologists call task time. In this very first era of human existence, time was completely indistinguishable from the labor itself.
You see, you didn't work for 8 hours. You just worked until the task was done. The anthropologist E. Evans Pritchard famously observed the newer people, a pastoral society, and noted that they didn't use an abstract grid to measure their day at all. They used what he called a cattle clock. The time of day was literally just the succession of chores. It's time to unfasten the sheep, it's time to milk the cows, it's time to move the herd to the grazing ground. Agrarian and pastoral societies measured time through these deeply sensory lived events.
When you look at the historical record, it's fascinating. Labor wasn't measured in hours, it was measured in day works, which was the actual physical acreage a skilled mower could harvest between sunrise and sunset. Over in Madagascar, a brief moment wasn't a minute, it was measured as the time it takes for the frying of a locust. On the Aran Islands off Ireland, cottages were built with north and south doors. When the north wind blew, the south door was opened, and the shadow of the doorpost slowly creeping across the kitchen floor acted as a domestic sundial. And in coastal communities, fishermen didn't live by the sun at all, they lived by attending the tides. Work and life were just deeply, seamlessly integrated.
Act 2. Measuring with the elements. As human civilizations expanded indoors and started building complex bureaucracies, we faced a profound problem.
How do you track time entirely beyond the sun's reach? Well, we had to capture the elements. The most accurate timekeeping device of the ancient world was the clepsydra, which literally translates to water thief. Imagine the sensory experience of being in a tense Roman law court. Your very fate is being decided. The magistrate fills a stone vessel with water and it begins to drip, drip, drip out of a small hole at the bottom. That specific water allotment literally dictated the exact length of a speaker's plea for their life. In matters of the death penalty, they'd fill the bowl to the brim. For petty crimes, only partially filled. Water became the physical, undeniable embodiment of time running out.
But what if you needed to wake up before the sun? Say you're a baker in medieval Europe. You had to engineer your own solutions. They used something called a calibrated candle. They would actually embed heavy iron nails into specific notches in the wax. As the candle slowly burned down through the night, the wax would melt and that heavy nail would suddenly fall, striking a metal plate below. That loud clunk shattering the absolute pitch-black silence of the medieval night, that was humanity's early, highly ingenious alarm clock.
So while human engineering masterfully manipulated water and fire and ash, all of these processes shared some core limiting factors. We're using gravity, linear combustion, winding labyrinths of incense powder burning in ash beds, but whether it was changes in water pressure, unexpected drafts of air, or even just room humidity, they all relied on the continuous flow of material. And, as you can probably guess, continuous flow is incredibly difficult to keep perfectly constant.
Which brings us to Act 3, Sacred Time and Ritual. Now you might think the drive for perfect accuracy came from capitalism or trade. Actually, the massive drive for chronological precision during the medieval era was driven by the strict, unyielding dictates of religious devotion. Under the rule of St. Benedict, Christian monks lived a life of highly rigorous routine. They divided their day into these specific canonical hours. Just imagine the grueling reality of monastic life here. You had to wake up for matins in the absolute pitch-black dead of night to pray. And because those gravity-driven water clocks we talked about would simply freeze or malfunction in the freezing European winters, monasteries desperately needed mechanical warning bells just to wake the bell ringer. This spiritual necessity birthed the first true mechanical alarms.
Meanwhile, over in the Islamic world, sacred time was reaching breathtaking levels of scientific precision. Major mosques established the office of the muwaqqit. Operating within a dedicated structure called the Dar al-Muwaqqit, these were highly trained astronomers and mathematicians. They didn't just casually glance at the sun. They used highly complex astrolabes and quadrants to meticulously track the heavens, calculating the exact moments for daily prayers across varying seasons and latitudes. They defined sacred time with a startling, almost modern mathematical accuracy.
So this brings us to a massive historical crossroad. We've seen humanity use the flow of water, the burning of wax, the movement of the stars. But how exactly do we move from that smooth, continuous flow of the elements to the precise, relentless, anxiety-inducing ticking of a machine? What was the catalyst?
Act 4. The Mechanical Revolution. This is where human civilization is forever altered by a radical leap in the late 13th century. We totally abandoned continuous elemental flow for a brand new concept. Unlike the quiet, smooth dripping of a water bowl, this new concept relied on the sheer mechanical violence of the verge and folio escapement. This was a heavy iron machine, grinding and clanking high up in European church towers. By suspending a vertical rod with a horizontal crossbar and movable weights, clockmakers forced heavy gears to advance one single, distinct tick at a time. And as these massive public clocks began chiming across town squares, the whole perception of time slowly started shifting from church time, meant for prayer, toward merchant's time, meant for trade.
Once we had the basic mechanics down, the escalation of accuracy happened incredibly fast. The early verge and folio clocks had an error margin of about 300 seconds, so 5 minutes a day. Not great by our standards. But then, in 1510, Peter Heinlein shrinks the mechanism with a main spring to create portable watches you could actually wear in a pouch. Then the massive breakthrough happens in 1656. Dutch polymath Christian Huygens invents the pendulum clock, brilliantly harnessing the physics of a swinging weight to drop the error rate to a mere 10 seconds a day. By 1670, time was constrained to an error of just 1 second a day. We had literally trapped time in a cage of gears and swinging brass.
Act 5. Time becomes money. The industrial climax. This is the profound sociological shift where humanity, having just mastered the mechanical measurement of time, suddenly became utterly subjugated by the mechanical tyrant we had created. The brilliant British historian E.P. Thompson observed this shift perfectly. He noted that once wage labor became prevalent, workers experienced a sharp, painful distinction between their employer's time and their own time. The crucial point here is the vocabulary. Time became a regimented commodity. It was no longer something that simply passed over you, it was something that could be spent, saved, or wasted.
And enforcing this new reality, it required a brutal imposition of time discipline on everyday people. That old, fluid taskscape we talked about at the beginning was completely crushed. Tolling factory bells violently replaced the natural rhythms of the sun. Employers started levying actual financial fines for wasted minutes. We birthed the rigid, exhausting division of work versus life that we all still navigate today. Authorities even went so far as to suppress spontaneous rural fairs and sports because they disrupted the production schedule. Punctuality and saving time were suddenly elevated to moral virtues. Humans were quite literally demanded to operate with the reliability of clockwork.
We had undergone a complete, society-wide psychological shift. Look at the contrast. On one side, you have task time, an existence dictated by the weather, the tides, localized social rhythms, a world where work and life were deeply, seamlessly integrated. On the other side, clock time, the modern world, dictated by unforgiving mechanical schedules where work and life are fiercely separated and time is a precious wage-based commodity that we are constantly terrified of running out of.
But, even as we live in this hyper-precise modern world, our clock time still carries the ancient ghosts of the deep past. Whenever you look at a watch and see 60 seconds in a minute or 60 minutes in an hour, you are directly experiencing the legacy of the ancient Babylonians and Sumerians, who used a base 60 mathematical system thousands of years ago. Our most modern, mechanical anxieties are built right on top of ancient foundations. Which leaves us with a final, vital question to reflect on. As you go back to your day, maybe take a look at the clock on your wall or the little timer at the corner of your screen and ask yourself, have we actually mastered time through our incredible mechanical precision?
Or has time ultimately mastered us? Thank you for exploring this history with me. Keep wondering, keep looking closely at the world around you, and I'll catch you in the next explainer.